So, the FNAF Survival Logbook would appear to be the most unusual piece of FNAF lore that we have gotten in the franchise, and yet somehow it has managed to be considered more canon than what the actual novel series is, as it is strongly implied that this is intended to be an in-universe book. We will be looking at it as such during this episode. The book appears to be provided to the user by someone who we note as being able to communicate with us through post-it notes. These notes notably give us information that the book has, as we can obviously see, been used by a previous person but has been scrubbed out by the current owners, and also that there is another post-it note which informs the user of the book to disregard spring locks, which somewhat gives us a good indication that this book in some way was created following the spring lock incidents. And so we can infer that the person using the post-it notes to communicate is in fact someone within the Fazbear's company who are trying to erase any knowledge of spring locks. The fact that the quiz within the book mentions spring locks would seem to imply that the book was itself created at a time when spring lock suits were still in functional use. Interestingly, there is also mention of suit stuffing, which would imply that this also appears to have been created around the time when the suit stuffing rumours had become a thing. Other notable things within this book which allow us to determine when it was created include the Screws, Bolts and Hairpin magazine we see in the first chapter, which, as we know, was around in the time of Sister Location. The puppet is present in the book, as is all the classical suits. JJ, Balloon Boy, the FNAF Free Office appears to make appearances within the book. Baby, Mangle, Ballora, the Golden Freddy plush, and also Funtime Freddy. So this would appear to narrow our dating of the book creation to somewhere around potentially the 80s, as we do know that the classical suits, the puppet, JJ and BB most likely are creations that were made around the time of 1987 when the FNAF 2 site opened, as are Mangle and the Golden Freddy plush. The fact that the Springlock suits are mentioned in the book but then are later retconned out via the post-it notes, it can be inferred that the book itself must therefore have been created before 1987, when the Springlock incident would have prevented the use of the suits and had them covered up. However, this raises the issue of when the other characters we have mentioned appear, as Baby, Ballora and Funtime Freddy appear to not have been fully revealed to the public before Sister Location, as we know that the original Babies closed before it even opened, and that the Freddy's establishment in FNAF 1 has to occur before Sister Location, as the Sister Location rental business that we see has developed in the wake of the failure of Freddy's as a franchise. And the FNAF Free Office itself is apparently further in the timeline than all of these animatronics, and so it is possible that the FNAF Free location was in fact based off of the image in this book and not the other way around. So if the post-it notes belong to management, it then brings up the questions of who are the other people that we know of within this piece of lore, as we can clearly see that the red text which is being scored out belongs to Mike, presumably Michael Afton. But who is the person receiving this book now? Now, as this is a children's activity book, it can be inferred that Mike was given this book as a child at Freddy's, and yet, for the most part, when examining the red text throughout the book, it does appear that Mike has begun to write in this book again as an adult. There are a few of the texts which do appear that they may have been written by Mike, as a child. The employees get free pizza, the chewing of gum excessively, and for the glory of pizza. There are also a few entries which do appear to relate to FNAF 4 in some way and may in fact share Michael's reflections on the events that occurred in that game. He tripped and fell on Freddy's teeth, not our fault. Guard locking up Freddy Doodle, and the 811 on the incident report. A few of these writings do also appear to be from the time period when Mike himself appears to have been a guard within the Freddy's facilities. The scoring out of success and replacing it with survival, the mentioning of Clara from The Immortal and the Restless, the certain death, the workout suggestions, the animatronic threats page, and potentially the doodle of the hero destroying Freddy. 3 of these doodles within the book also give us somewhat of a positive timeline placement for when Mike is writing in this book, as we can see that there are casual bongos, which would imply that this drawing was done directly or sometime after Sister Location, a drawing of Nightmare, which would occur after FNAF 1, as the FNAF 4 gameplay is Mike's nightmares of that event, and also the cash and butter baskets, which occur after Sister Location. Some of the texts that Mike has written are more difficult to place, such as the not funny, haha, drawings of prizes that he wants, the new Freddy's logo design, the Halloween costumes doodle, and now we have the final one, the Grave Doodle, which directly ties into the my name that we find is a running thing in this book, and also the fact that Mike has potentially drawn this grave as his own, considering that this is clearly him writing in the book after Sister Location, and at this point he believes he should be dead. We will also find from this instance, plus upcoming installments in the franchise, that somehow infusing Remnant into a living being allows them to commune with the spirits. So this book contains multiple hidden puzzles which you utilise cryptography of certain kinds to unravel. There is a coupon on which is written for real value, so we have to take the $16 that we see to page 61, which gives us 5 plus 4 and a 3, which would give us 9, presumably times 3, which then gives us 27. The value of $16 with inflation in the year gives us the year 2017, which potentially means this is the year Mike is writing in the book, which is also why it is proposed that FNAF 3 takes place in 2017. Throughout the book there are a number of tally marks randomly laid on pages, and if we do collect these up, consider they are in red, by the way, so we can infer that this is potentially Mike who is writing these. On each tally page we have, for page 9 there are 5 tallies. The 5th word on this page is 2. On page 19 there are 10 tallies. The 10th word is you. Page 31, 14, 14th word from. Page 36 we have 5. The 5th word is your. And page 100, 5. The 5th word is architect. To you, from your architect. Interestingly enough, there is a page in the book that tells you to tally up your score, which also happens to be the page with the notes about the spring suits. This may imply that it is in fact Mike who is the person who tips off the FNAF 3 establishment to the location of Springtrap. The fact that the book is therefore implied to be in the possession of the FNAF 3 employees, given that this message has been sent to them, then we can also infer that FNAF 3 is actually based off the office in these books, as I discussed earlier. It is the FNAF free office being designed to look like the book and not the other way around. The My Name puzzle in the book appears to be giving us the name of a character who is communicating with the reader, and as we can see there are a number of page numbers which are incorrect throughout the book. So if we gather these up, we actually put them into the word search, as within the book there's a page that notes that we have to self-reflect, i.e. there's a mirror on the page directly opposite the word search, and therefore that is the clue that we have to go use the word search to find this hidden name. And so if we take these mixed up page numbers and use them as coordinates in the grid, we have 52, so C, 39, A, 15, S, 72, S, 10, and 11, which are highlighted, a D, and 8, 11 gives us a Y. So, barring one letter being missing, we have the name Cassidy, which has been believed to be able to be completed if you take the true value from previously, and the 9 and the 3 gives you an I. Which begs the question, does this make this invalid as an option, as you had to get the I from another source? But as we do later learn in the franchise, Cassidy is indeed a character that is introduced, and therefore this must be in some way intended to be how it is found in this book. Now, this part I have done myself based on recent developments in the lore, whereby it is believed that Gregory is in fact one of the patients talking to the psychiatrist in Security Breach. So, using the conversation between the faded text and the altered Night 4 and 5 review text, I have put these into the Foxy Grid, which has eluded many fans as to its purpose, on page 95 in order to discern new lore from this book that is yet to be found. And I have also rearranged these snippets of text into something that sort of resembles a coherent conversation between the two individuals. Page 20. What do you remember? Page 31. Do you remember your name? Page 109. I'm scared. Page 75. Does he still talk to you? This page also features the imaginary Fredbear friend plush. Page 89. I can hear sounds. Page 83. Is this song familiar to you? Page 56. Was your favourite ride the carousel? Page 70. Do you miss them? Page 89. It was for me. Page 103. The party was for you. Page 41. Do you have dreams? Page 59. What do you see? Page 109. I can't see. Bearing in mind that the frontal lobe is believed to control the ability to dream, it is possible that if it is missing from an individual, is it possible that they cannot see when they dream? Page 42. Do any of these toys look familiar to you? Page 43. Did one of these belong to you? Page 23. Was your favourite childhood toy a plastic purple telephone? Now, if you fill out the Foxy Grid as shown by the faded text, the ABC in the top corner implies that you must fill the grid completely with the alphabet until you reach Z, and then continue with A, and then keep going until the grid is completely filled with no gaps. If you take the page numbers of this conversation, you will get for 31 a C, for 109 an F, 75 an E, 89 a D, 83 a T, 56 a V, for 103 a V, 41 a D, 59 an A, 42 a W, 43 a P, and 23 an N. Now, Given that the rest of the page numbers here do not give us letters, as they are ending in zeros and therefore we can't plot them on a coordinate grid, the remaining letters have given us enough to spell two potential names, Dawn and Evan. Evan, notably, as we find later in the franchise, is a character with striking similarities and potential connections to the Afton family. And as with the Cassidy we saw earlier, given that the word search gave us the full name bar one vowel, it is also possible with these letters that we have to create the word Afton minus the O. But given that there are multiple page numbers which don't work because they in fact contain a 0, which is basically the number version of an O, could this mean that there is in some way hinting at something to do with an Afton here? Another interesting tidbit that I have noticed is that there are a few lines along the side of the Foxy grid in the sort of middle of the book where the two pages meet, which have never really been discussed as to what their proper intended purpose is. Yet, when the grid is fully done up with all the letters, when you go to where these lines are situated on the grid, you will find certain letters are in proximity to them. So, what we end up with are the letters A, R, D, W, N, and E, which when rearranged give us Andrew, who again, going forward, is a character we will meet later on in the franchise. Is this potentially what Scott intended this to be? I have no idea, but it's interesting nonetheless that, given a bit of backpedaling from the future, this was what I discovered. Interestingly enough, if you use the same logic that was used to find the I for Cassidy, we find that the Foxy reading the magazine page on page 4 gives us the numbers 3 and 5, which links us back to the chalkboard on page 61 with the same numbers. And so, if you take those numbers, which will in some way lead you to page 61 because of the similarity, if you go to the Foxy grid and you put in 61, you will not get what we're looking for here. But if you put in 1, 6, it gives you an R. And if you add R to the letters that we got from the conversation previously, we will have enough letters to create the name Andrew, which seems to, in my opinion, imply that this is doubling down on Andrew being important in the franchise coming up. I also utilised multiple other parts of this book in attempts to find any other potentially hidden lore that is still yet to be discovered, including using a blacklight to search for hidden text, as we know blacklights are in some way important within the FNAF universe given what we've seen in the Twisted ones. However, this yielded no results, as did attempting to use the numbers found on the coupons to determine if they were truly just random numbers or if they indeed had some form of importance. And so, based on all the available evidence, I have decided to concur that due to the confliction of details within the logbook is in fact a merch piece created by Fazbear Frights, and therefore it must exist somewhere around the time of the FNAF 3 location, due to Michael's drawings in the book showing us that he is currently existing at a point in time after Sister Location's events have occurred to him, which may explain why the book is covered in blood. Mike has at this point already been scooped. This, as well as the fact that Mike appears to drop hints in this book as to the location of Springtrap, which can be possibly implied to mean he's leaving these clues for the FNAF 3 staff, then that would mean that Sister Location must come before FNAF 3 in the timeline, as well as the fact that Sister Location must therefore potentially come after FNAF 1, in the timeline, as Mike draws his nightmares from his time spent in FNAF 1. And so it does make sense to me that Mike may in fact be trying to destroy the Freddy's company based on his past experiences and his family experiences, and that raises a potential future theory that I have in which Mike in fact is animated. So that is all for the FNAF logbook. In the next video I'm going to cover the final book in the trilogy for the Silver Eyes, the Fourth Closet, and then following that the epilogue of the series, and in many ways a prologue to the future phase of this franchise, the Ultimate Custom Night.